All right, well, thank you for joining us today for the MyStar Learning Series to hear about what's new moving forward with MyStar. We've got a lot of exciting developments that we'd like to share with you. So thank you so much for being here. And for a special treat for being here live, we have some exclusive links that we'll be sharing with you towards the end of the session that won't be available until later this year with a new subscription for everybody else. So thanks so much for being here with us today. We've got a great session lined up today. We're going to talk about our enhanced units and what that means. We've got some differentiated reading guides that we'll look at and dig into a little bit, talking about routines and assessment enhancements that have been added to the units, and also some more new off-the-shelf lessons. Perhaps if you were joining us in our last MyStar Learning series, you heard about our new What is Matter Made Of and CER lessons, but we've got even more off-the-shelf lessons for you too. So we're excited to share those as well. And then we'll end out the session with some breakout room time, some Q&A with our presenters and with your colleagues to really, kind of digest the content we've shared with you today. We've got a great lineup of presenters that are going to share this information. So we've got Megan Coonan, who is a math and science consultant down in the Saginaw area, and Chris Gear, who is our professional learning coordinator. And then also Jen Perez here with us, and she teaches 8th grade science just nearby Michigan Tech here. And she's also a NOIS fellow teacher leader. So thanks so much everyone for being here to present for us today. And my name is Lindsay Watch. I work on the curriculum development and professional learning teams, and I'll be facilitating the session. So if you have any technical troubles or you need another link to something, feel free to private chat me and I can get you set up with what you need. So we're going to start off with a little Jamboard to kind of get our gears turning. It's been a long day, long week, maybe a long year even. So we'll start off with some easy questions, hopefully. And we've got 2 questions for you today. And again, in the spirit of our session, we would like to hear from you. We've got some, sorry, my computer's loading just a little slow today. I'll throw the link in the Jamboard or in the chat. So we have been adding enhancements and been making some tweaks to some of our units, but we would like to hear what kind of additions or modifications do you make when you're teaching a MyStar unit? Maybe there are some things we could really draw from and add even more to our units. And then also we have a second frame on the Jamboard, and what do you usually do with your students the first week of school? I know fall feels like a long ways away. It's April. It feels like that's never going to happen. But we want to help you get set up and get comfortable with those first couple weeks of school. And we think we have some things you might really enjoy. But we would like to hear what you typically do with your students. How do you get to know them? How do you set up your classroom environment with them? So we'll just take a few minutes if you would grab a sticky note. So those are there on the far left screen, and you just click on, looks like a little piece of paper, and you can type. If you don't want to get into the Jamboard or having trouble, you can also throw your responses in the chat, and I can add sticky notes for you as well. And the link to the Jamboard is in the chat. All right, we'll give you just another moment to finish up your sticky note. You can feel free to keep adding if something comes up as we're chatting, but want to make sure we get on to our great content today. Looks like a lot of people make some sort of modifications to MyStar, and I see some things in here that we might have resources to share today, like some science word support and assessment tips, and some upcoming MyStar sessions that might help answer or help with some of these modifications as well. And then it looks like in the fall, there's lots of testing going on, or policies and procedures, get to know you activities. Those seem pretty common. Yeah, get them used to your classroom. Great. Well, we'll think about these as we go through the information we have to share with you today. So thanks so much for sharing that with us. So to start off, we'd like to talk a little bit about MyStar unit enhancements and where you might expect to see those and what that actually means. We've got some more detail further in the session, but I'll give you a quick overview now, and then we'll get into our presenters and their great content. So we have quite a few enhanced units that we are excited to roll out for the 2022-23 school year. We've got some units for every grade. We wanted to make sure everyone had something new to pick from. And some of them have, new unit challenge scenarios, but all of them have, some kind of enhancements and modifications that we've made to hopefully make your teaching life easier and really get your kids engaged in the science content in those units. And so we've got 3 from 6th grade and 2 each from 7th and 8th, and all 3 of the first units have been really enhanced because we know those are coming up soon for next year. And so what do we mean? Like, what does enhanced exactly mean? Well, like I said, some have new unit challenge scenarios. Others have been updated to kind of really match those standards, those PEs really well. They've gone through kind of a storyline revision where we really wanted to make sure the students could feel like it made sense how the unit was progressing. So we took a look at those storylines and tried to tighten those up. Where we could, we shortened unit length, whether that meant like eliminating a lesson or making it optional at least, thinking if there was some repeated content that maybe your students were already familiar with, and also trying to reduce the number of lessons so that a unit doesn't have to take quite so long while still adequately covering those standards. Some of the things we're going to talk about today in the session are we've added additional readings with differentiated guides that will help give this optional extension for your students to engage with that content. And we've also added suggested visible thinking and facilitation strategies in some of those key places, really to help with that consensus discussion and the sense making that your students need to do to help answer those lesson discovery questions and really digest that unit challenge content. And then we've also been working really hard. The assessment team has been doing a great job revising and improving our assessments, both pre-posts and embedded assessments. So trying to eliminate the number of phenomena that an assessment may have and really streamline those questions and make them really student friendly and build out some of those additional resources like slides and images to help deliver those assessments for your students. This is an ongoing endeavor. This is work that we're continuing to do. So we've made a curriculum enhancements roadmap here for you that you can always check back to. It's a live document, so we'll keep it updated as new improvements come out. And so it's published as a website. And so we've got, enhanced and beta unit release dates, units that have remote resources available, whether that's slide guides or student journals. We also have, which units have revised assessments, career connections, slides and lesson plans. We have a handful of units that have those as well. Those make really good sub plans, or maybe a day where you just kind of need to take a breath. And then for our modeling teachers, we have a handful of units that also have modeling adaptations to them. So this document, we will add to it, like I said. And so if you're ever wondering what a unit might have, feel free to check it out, and we'll keep this updated as we roll out more enhancements for you. So we'll dig into a little bit more about what these mean. And so we're going to hear from each of our presenters in a little more detail on some of these enhancements. So Megan Coonan is here today to talk to us about differentiated reading guides, and she's got a little activity for us today. Megan, would you like to take it away?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, so I had the opportunity to work with the team and kind of work on some differentiated reading guides. We were hearing that there was a need for some literacy and also some space for differentiation for in the units. And so there's some new reading guides. Lindsay, if you would scroll us to the next slide. There we go. Thank you. So really the goal is to provide teachers with these optional differentiated reading guides, one activity per lesson. That was the goal. And it's optional, right? It's not something that everybody has to do, but they're there in case you're interested and you want students to have that opportunity to engage in that literacy connection. It provides opportunities for students to really dig into some science reading and think about the content through that literacy lens. And it also allows a way to engage students in the content, not watering down the content, right? Keeping that content consistent, but changing maybe the product or the process that students might go through so that all students have entry points for that content. And also an important key was that advanced does not always mean just more work, right? We don't give them more volume. It means that we're actually asking them to think about some application and really dig into how they might use that content in a different way, so that it really is truly about that advanced student getting that high level thinking through the process. And we did develop 3 different levels. So we have levels A, B, and C, A being at grade level, B below, and C above grade level. And really the content is the students are all engaging in the same or similar text. And the idea is, again, we're not changing or watering down the content, but we're really thinking about the products and what students might be doing with that new learning. So for example, in our below grade level, we might include some sentence stems, which I saw on the Jamboard that some of you already are doing that in assessments and things like that, providing students with sentence stems or maybe multiple choice to support their understanding, providing them with some supports there. And then again, with the above grade level, really trying to get students to that more application-based, more complex responses. And so really allowing students to engage in the work that fits their needs the best. And so next, what we're going to do is there are 3 examples, a level A, B, and C example on this Jamboard. And each level is 3 slides. So you will see at the top of each slide, it'll say, thanks, Lindsay. It'll say option 1, page 1, option 2, page 2, because I just wanted to be very clear which pages go together. But we do want to send you into breakout rooms and give you a chance to look through. They're not in order by A, B, and C. We want you to just kind of take a look and see if you can identify which might be at grade level, which might be below grade level, and which might be above. So you can add sticky notes. And if there's something you're noticing, like I think this is below grade level because I'm noticing sentence stems and multiple choice or those kinds of pieces that you're pulling, just adding that in there. This is really just a few minutes for you to kind of get a chance to look through what some of these examples might look like. And then talk about them with your group and talk about which one you think might be a level A, B, or C. And really, if you don't remember the letters, it's fine. You can just put at grade level, below grade level, and above. All right, welcome back, everyone. So thank you for just taking a few minutes and kind of, like we said, getting a chance to look through and see what those different examples look like, but then also really thinking about which option they might fit. So exactly right. Option 1 was the advanced. And really it's because the questions that are in here are a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more complex. Now, I do want to always throw out that with all things MyStar, things get better over time, right? So this is our first crack at this. And so we continue to get better and better. So I appreciate all the feedback and comments about that too, but just so everybody knows that we all get better over time. So so we'll continue to do that with these as well. But yeah, this example, and even as I look at it, this, you know, and now I did it a while ago, I look at it now, I'm like, oh, I could have done this. We could have done this. So there's lots of spaces. So thank you for the feedback. Option 1, yes, is above. Option 2 is at grade level. And again, you may notice at the very top, you can't click on that link where it says go to selection, but the selection is the same. So again, we're asking kids to access that same text. We want them to be able to engage in that same article. We just are going to ask questions in a slightly different way. And so option 2 is a little bit more straightforward than the more complex of above grade level. And then for option 3, as you said, yes, is below grade level. And you do see that there's sentence stems and multiple choice and same content, same questions, just allowing students a different way to respond. So that was really the idea behind these, as I, you know, and we'll continue to work on these for other units and lessons and enhance the process as we continue, but wanted you to be able to see an example today of what those are going to look like. And I don't know, Chris, I don't know, for example, like which exact lessons they're currently in or units they're currently in. And I don't know if we were saying
they're in or they will be in by fall, those enhanced units that we talked about. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, and as many as we can get them in as quickly as we can. Yeah, and someone asked about the text being the same. There's a fair amount of research on reading that suggests that giving kids below grade level reading level text is not the best way to bring them up to grade level and move them forward. And so we do have some of our differentiated options have a more complex higher level text for the level C, but the level A and B will always have the same text, and it'll be something that's written at a middle school level, so 6th, maybe 7th grade, with the idea being that the below grade level questions can be answered a lot of times if they've heard the article read out loud. There's a lot of scaffolding so that they have early confidence as they start to move through, so they don't become reluctant or discouraged. The sentence starters, the multiple choice, those kinds of things, and a fair number of what do you think, how does this, you know, where have you seen this in your life, kinds of things that any kid can answer, regardless of reading skills. So really trying to focus on making that grade level text accessible to kids who might be reluctant or struggling readers.
Yes, thank you.
Chris, anything else you'd like to say about the reading, differentiated readings?
I think not right now. Megan did a great job, and we'll do the Q&A later. So if something comes up or you're thinking of something, be happy to talk to you again. Like Megan said, you know, this is, we're giving this a shot. We will certainly get better at it, but we know it's something that's important to teachers and useful. And so anyway, we're providing that as best we can.
Absolutely. And I think we gleaned some of these strategies from our reading apprenticeship partnership.
Yes.
That we had a session in the fall on reading strategies, and we're going to have another one in May. Our next learning series digs deeper into reading apprenticeships and kind of where we got a lot of these ideas from. And so if you're interested in that, there's a registration link for May's session. It'll be May 26th. And so you can register for that one as well. That we've done a deeper dive into a couple MyStar units with this reading apprenticeship partnership. And so we'll be sharing that during the May Learning Series session. But for now, we'll put the differentiated reading guides on the shelf for a moment, and then we'll talk about visible thinking routines and assessment enhancements, and Chris will share some of that work with us today.
Thanks, Lindsay. Before I start, in the chat, I just dropped the link to the MyStar Teachers Pedagogy and Strategies kind of library document. And I thank you for all of the input that you had on the Jamboard for that was the icebreaker of ways that you modify or things that you add to MyStar units. And I saw mind maps and Frayer models and one-pagers and some accommodations for assessments. And those are things that are listed in that document, and it's under resources on your dashboard, so you can always find it. But I just dropped it in the chat just so that if you saw that and you weren't the one who posted it and you're like, oh, tell me about one-pagers or tell me about Frayer models. Some of that is in our resources document. So I just wanted to let people know that resource exists, and there's lots of good stuff there. And we're adding to that all the time too. Including there's a whole section on literacy, for example. So, all right, so routines and assessment enhancements. So our enhanced units have some new suggestions for routines, things you can do with your kids, procedures, ways to conduct discussions and things like that. And then we also have some assessment enhancements. So why are we doing all this? Because of all those things that you listed that you might be adding to, creating on your own kinds of things. And all of the decisions that you make, and especially if you're teaching 2 or 3 or 4 preps, and teachers famously suffer from decision fatigue. You just can't think about one more thing, or you just don't have time to sit and ponder about what would be the best way to move from lesson 2 to lesson 3. We're trying to do some of that pondering and thinking for you and make some suggestions. Of course, you're always welcome to do things your way and modify it in the way that you think works for you. But just to kind of relieve that, holy cow, now I got to think about this. I got to look at this list. I got to make another decision about what to do here. We've started providing some of those pieces. So we're providing navigation routines that are going to help you move between lessons in keeping that storyline going for kids and helping them feel like they're driving instruction. We in the uncovers and shares are suggesting some routines that you could use with kids besides just saying, oh, have a consensus discussion. Well, here's maybe a fun or unique or novel way to do that. And then we'll talk about the assessments and the overview pages and some good things that are going on there. So the navigation routines are really based on the bubble map, which is, MyStar's form of a driving question board. And so you have your bubble map, your class bubble map, and you do it in lesson 1. And then what I did when I first started teaching MyStar is I put it up on the wall because the MyStar people told me I should, but I never really used it again because I don't know what to do with it. And so then, as we've gotten better at, honing our skills and kind of, sharpening the saw and getting a little better at our practices, we realized that what we really want is for kids to feel like they're driving the next lesson question. So we do a middle lesson, we learn some stuff, we apply it to the unit challenge, and then what do we do next? Well, we want to, as best as possible, always help kids to feel like what we're doing next makes sense, and it's based on what questions do they have, what do they still think we need to figure out. And so these navigation routines are going to show up at the end of the check your progress, so the last phase of each lesson, and we've outlined kind of the rationale of why did the MyStar CD team, curriculum development team, choose to do this lesson next? Why did they choose to have this question next? So you get a little insight into their mind, why it seemed to make sense for them, which helps you kind of sell it to the kids, right? And then there's a number of ways that you can, routines that you can use. And it could be as simple as, what I used to do is I'd find the the kids' question that kind of matched the next lesson question. I go, look, you know, you guys were asking this, let's look at that next. It could be the kind of thing where maybe nobody in your class asked any question that's really related to the next lesson question. And so we have a very simple, very quick, almost an exit slip kind of student guide where kids kind of do a little reflecting. What have we learned? What do we need to know? And you can collect those. And then the next day you're like, hey, somebody asked about this question and it happens to be what we're going to do next. Or some of our units have places where we have pivots. So for example, in unit 6.1, we do water cycle, water cycle, water cycle, water cycle. And then all of a sudden we need to teach criteria and constraints. And so we pivot from talking about water cycle to talking about engineering stuff. And so there's a navigation routine to kind of help you walk your kids through this rationale of why are we suddenly shifting. So we purposely tried to make them short, super easy, non-threatening. We don't want you to be hanging out there like, oh, well, the kids want to do this and it's not on the list, but I got to do what they want. You know, we don't want that to happen. So we're trying to make it workable, quick, easy, but do some of that pre-thinking for you so that you don't have to ponder and plan it all out yourself. What's next? Good. Okay. Oh, here we go. So this is an example from 6.1 of part of what that navigation guide chunk looks like in the lesson plan. So again, there's that where teacher just refers, we're pretty sure in lesson 2 that in any class, the kids are going to ask something related to that lesson 2 lesson driving question. And so we just suggest that you look at your bubble map and find a question that's pretty close to what the next lesson question is. And then there's that rationale and the got to have checklist so that you don't have to stop and click on the next lesson. You can just, while you're in lesson you can see what's coming next and help kids move along. And so there's some links there for the navigation guide, the thing that the kids fill out if you choose to use that. It's just a real simple reflection piece. And that's super useful if nobody asked the question, the next question. And then there's some examples of navigation guides if you want to look at those in more detail at some point. Okay. And then the visible thinking routines, these are, you know, that Project Zero has a lot of visible thinking routines that they published. Ambitious Science Teaching has a lot of visible thinking routines that they've published. And there are some that are just, I'm not sure where they came from. They're just kind of tried and true things that I've learned from other MyStar teachers that work well. And so what the CD team did was we went through and just kind of put them all in one place. And so if you see the link there at the bottom of that slide, we now have a collection of these visible thinking routines. This link is linked to that teacher strategy and pedagogies library, so you can always find it there. But then we also went through in these enhanced units and looked at the Uncover and what are kids doing in the Uncover, and if they're expected to share things in small groups before moving on to the whole group in the share, what would be a cool way to do that? And so, you know, when kids are modeling, you do send out a spine. You let one kid from each table group go out and look at other people's models and then come back. And then you get to revise or add, or, you know, those are great things that kids love, and they're solid educational processes, but you might not know about them or think about them. So we've started putting in suggestions. You don't have to do it that way, but if you want to think about trying something, there it is. Same thing with the shares where you're doing those whole group things. You know, a gallery walk is a great standby, but you can only do gallery walk so many times before kids start to lose interest. And so there are some other ways to get kids to share their ideas in whole groups. And depending on what the activity is and the information that they're analyzing, what is it, a model, is it a graph, whatever, there are different routines that might work better. And so again, there are suggestions. So, and then if you don't like those suggestions, there's a whole list of those visible thinking routines that you have now at your fingertips. Okay, what do we have next, Lindsay? Okay, and so assessment enhancements. So the, thanks, John. The assessment team has worked really hard, heard lots of teacher feedback about especially the pre-post tests, that they're very, very long, that they are sometimes hard for kids to read. Kids get a little confused with the formatting and things like that. And so they have been working not just in these enhanced lessons, but in all of our units. They're working through all the units, should be finished before the end of the calendar year, improving the pre-post tests and the embedded assessments to make them shorter, fewer words, improve the formatting. And then in the pre-post teacher version, there is this assessment overview table that is super useful if you do need to make your assessment shorter. We recommend that you eliminate one whole cluster rather than eliminate some of the questions, because those clusters are really carefully scaffolded to help kids do the sense-making process. If you take out some of those questions, kids might not get where you need them to go. So you can look here to see what's being assessed in each of those clusters of questions. And you'll notice there's only 3 here, not 5 or 6 like there used to be. But pick the 1 or 2 that you really want to focus on and just get rid of one of them if you need to make it shorter for somebody. If you want to break it up and give the test, bit by bit as you go through the unit, you can look and see what lessons kids need to have gotten through in order to understand that cluster. And you could even break it up that way. If you are trying to write goals for your evaluation and you want to measure kids' growth on using models, you can compare just how kids did on that one cluster in one unit to the next unit to the next unit. So those overview tables are super useful, kind of gives you a little look into the mind of the assessment team and helps you understand what they were thinking and how things are structured. And if assessment is something you're interested in 2 weeks, we are doing a phase 2 virtual Toolkit course for 2 hours. Everybody is invited. You don't have to be a brand new teacher to go. And Barb McIntyre, who is our retired middle school teacher who's an assessment guru, will be there with us. And then we are also, within the next week, we're going to publish the Canvas course on assessments for phase 2. So if you can't make it to the live version, but you're interested, watch in the next week or so, and you'll see that Canvas course will be available to you. Okay.
Any questions for Chris before we move on? Okay, if you think of anything, you can throw it in the chat, and we'll also have some time at the end to answer questions as well. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing all the hard work that the CD and assessment teams have been up to these last few months or so. And now we'll talk about some new off-the-shelf lessons. And Jen Para is here to talk about her experience with writing these lessons and then teaching them in her classroom.
Hi. Okay, so there's 2 new off-the-shelf lessons. One is based on the Draw a Scientist test. I don't know if people are familiar with it. If you were at the My Star Learning series last spring, that was the inspiration for this lesson. And Lindsay put a link in case you want to go back and watch that section from the learning series, because that's really where this idea came from. But the Draw a Scientist idea has been around for about 50 years. Researchers have students draw a scientist, and then they were analyzing the student drawings to figure out what kids' misconceptions were about what a scientist is and what a scientist does. And I thought that that could be a great way to start off the school year. So when I did this pilot of this lesson, I did it on the very first day of school, because the anchor is asking the students to draw a picture of a scientist doing science. It doesn't take very long. It's a really nice activity for the first day of school. The kids seem to be very happy to draw in color. And depending on how long your periods are, because I know some schools have shortened periods on the first day, they run half days or whatnot. We actually got right into the Uncover and had the kids start gathering data about the drawings. And I'll show you in a minute when we get to a future slide. There's a data sheet, and they're going to look at their classmates' drawings and start tallying different characteristics that they notice. This is a really good opportunity too to get kids engaged in one of the practices right away on the first day of school. I would suggest, though, there's some notes in the lesson that if you do this on day one, perhaps put the drawings under the document camera one by one and have the kids analyze and collect data that way, as opposed to just saying, hey, we're going to do a gallery walk on the first day of school with a room full of kids that you've never met before, because I think that would be chaotic. And then students work together to come up with this idea of what are the characteristics of a scientist. And that's a great opportunity to start establishing classroom norms and teaching kids how to have a consensus discussion, especially if they aren't familiar with the MyStar curriculum or they haven't done these things before. After that, and kids usually have some pretty goofy ideas about what a scientist is, as you'll see in a minute, because I have some sample work to share with you. They watch a video of real scientists talking about what they do, and they get a chance to revise their descriptions. And then to have them make a connection, they write a short story or summary of their scientific summer, something they did over the summer that was scientific. Or if you didn't do this at the beginning of the year, it could be something they did over spring break or whatever it happens to be. And then at the end, they reflect on how their thinking may have changed. So if we look ahead to the next couple of slides, this is a sampling of some of the student work that I got. I would say these are the really good examples. I like to call them like the good, the bad, and the ugly, but these are the really good ones. You can see there's a very interesting assortment of ideas about what a scientist does. I'm kind of partial to the little Albert Einstein down in the corner because a lot of kids, that's the only scientist they could name. I think we could probably go to the next one. These would be some pretty typical examples that I got too. And as you're looking at these, you probably can already see some themes, but just so you don't think, wow, look at how great all their artists are. Lots of stick figures, which is fine. But you can start to see that kids have some very specific ideas about what scientists are and what they're doing. And then you're going to get some like this. I assume if your kids are like mine, I'm not sure what's going on in a few of these, but that's what they think a scientist is doing. So if you go to the next slide, based on all these different drawings, as we put them under the document camera, the kids were just tallying, you know, how many of them showed somebody wearing a lab coat or safety goggles, working with test tubes or beakers, animals and microscopes. How many have the stereotypical nerd, mad scientist, or messy hair? We had them looking at, are they working indoors or outdoors? Are they working with things that look to be dangerous? And then, you know, are there books or pocket protectors full of pens and pencils, file cabinets, clipboards, that type of thing. And then kids are asked, are there any other patterns that they notice as well? So based on this, they work in their groups then to come up with a description, like, what do you think a scientist is based on all this data that you gathered from your classmates? And if we go to the next slide, I asked them, is this what you think a scientist looks like? And this slide came from the MyStar Learning series, but this is pretty typical of what you see in their drawings. Lots of bubbling test tubes and beakers with crazy hair. And then kids all laugh and said, well, that's what the data showed. So then we watch the video about the scientists in the field talking about what they actually do, and kids start to develop a different picture of what a scientist looks like. And if you could go to the next slide. We do a 4-square reflection where they answer these different questions. We use big whiteboards or a piece of paper, and they start to come up with the idea that the images that they drew aren't necessarily realistic, that scientists look like people from all different walks of life because scientists are people from all different walks of life. And they start to understand too. A lot of the kids said, well, we got those ideas from watching cartoons. That was the big takeaway. Why did they think that? That's what they see on movies, TV, cartoons. So that's kind of a quick overview of the Draw a Scientist lesson. The second lesson is a lab safety lesson, because I know that I always started the school year with lab safety. And after I started teaching MyStar, I still wanted to talk about lab safety. So I started thinking about how could I take lab safety and make it more MyStar-like. So that's where the inspiration for the second lesson came from. And in this one, the anchor includes having the kids watch a video of a service dog that's wearing personal protective equipment. And they have to identify the different pieces of PPE and think about what the purpose of those pieces of equipment would be, just to get them thinking about safety. And then in the Uncover, if you went into the lesson plan, there's a menu of different lab safety activities and a few videos. And there's different ideas. You could try them all and have each group do something different and do a jigsaw. You could just pick one and have the whole class do it. It's really meant to be open-ended. I think if a teacher already is doing lab safety and you have some sort of activity that you like to use, by no means is the list in the lesson plan meant to be all inclusive. If you have something you like, I would say use it if something's already been working for you. And if you really think it's good, maybe add it to the forum so that other teachers could see it as well. But after they go through these activities that remind them, like one is the what not to do laboratory, and it shows all kinds of things going wrong, and the kids have to pick out what lab rules are being broken, because most of them are familiar with lab safety to a degree. And then they brainstorm different rules that they know of and why those rules are important. So during the share, then you can have another consensus discussion and create the class rules that the students are going to use for the school year. And then in the connect, the students create a lab safety poster. So they choose a rule, and I set it up so that in each section, only one kid got a rule, like one kid per rule, because I didn't want 15 posters about wear your goggles and the other 15 that said don't eat in the lab. So, we did a lottery and they picked their rules. And that create a lab safety poster gives them the opportunity to think about communicating visually. And there's some sample safety posters included in the lesson that you can put up and have the kids talk about the different features. Like, is this a good way to communicate a rule visually? Because some of the posters you'll see, there's some good ones and some bad ones. And they'll see, like, you don't want to have a paragraph explaining what a lab rule is. It needs to be something that somebody can look at from across the room and very quickly get the idea about what the rule is, because people aren't going to take the time to read something that's really elaborate. And then the check your progress would be the traditional lab safety quiz that a lot of teachers give at the beginning of the year. And we have a link to a quiz. I think it's on Flynn Scientific, just as an example. But again, if you have your own safety quiz, that's the place where you could put that in. And one caveat I would say is, if you do this, make sure that you look at your quiz ahead of time, so that in the share, when they're creating the class rules, everything that's on the lab safety quiz is actually in your class rules. And then the lab safety posters that they create can be hung up in your classroom, and the rules that they came up with and they illustrated are the ones that are posted in the classroom for the remainder of the school year. So we have a few examples on the next slides. And again, these are ones that some of my students made at the beginning of the school year. It's really fascinating too, because some of them think that the rule has to rhyme. I'm not sure where they get that idea from. So you get some very interesting slogans that don't necessarily make sense because kids want them to rhyme. But I think the broken glass one there was pretty self-explanatory. Like they were showing, put it in the special container that's marked for broken glass. A lot of my kids, you can watch an idea spread through your class too. They decided that the green check mark that was really popular this year. Like, yes, this is the way to do it. And they like the no smoking sign type thing for what not to do. But there's a few more on the next page as well, just to show you some different samples of what the kids were coming up with. And then, of course, I didn't want you to think that all of my students are fabulous artists who produce wonderful work that, you know, I also got wear shoes, which I don't know. It looks like a golf club to me. I'm not sure. I mean, and then this one was frustrating to me because I know that, you know, a day and a half worth of work too. And it did, you know, so that's the one where we could have that discussion. Well, why do you wear shoes in the lab? Like, it has the rule, but it really doesn't effectively teach why we have that rule or why it's important. So any questions?
Thanks, Jen. These look like some really great lessons to start off the school year, get to know your students and hear, you know, what their prior knowledge is of scientists and safety.
And I guess too, because these are brand new, we would love feedback. If anybody uses these lessons and has any suggestions or feedback for us, that would be really great too.
Agreed. Thanks, Jen. So these are our special gifts to you as our live participants. Only you get the sneak peek preview links. They're not even on the portal yet. So I will be including these links in the email, but I'll probably take them out of the agenda as a, you know, to share with the public. So just special for you guys, because we appreciate you spending your time with us today. So we wanted to give you an extra special treat. So that is the content that we had to share with you today on our enhancements and our new units that we're going to be rolling out for next year. We have a couple more virtual MyStar sessions this year still. Like Chris had mentioned earlier, there's a phase 2 in-person or virtual live session on assessment that's happening in a couple weeks, and the link to register is there. You can also hop onto the MyStar dashboard to register. There's gonna be a lot of good stuff in there. And then we've got our one more MyStar learning series for the school year. And that's going to dig into more of those specific reading apprenticeship strategies in a couple of MyStar units. We really dug deep and we'll be sharing some of that work with Heather from West Ed Reading Apprenticeship. So we're really excited for that session as well. So you can also register for that on the dashboard. But other than that, we wanted to open up, whoops. I didn't refresh my screen. We wanted to open up the breakout rooms so you could talk to our presenters if you had any questions about the unit enhancements with Chris and Megan, or you know, the off-the-shelf lessons and things that Jen did in her classroom, and you know, how you might want to make that work in your classroom. So I'm going to open up breakout rooms and we'll do choose your own adventures for this Q&A session. So what that means is you get to choose which room you would like. And so we'll put the presenters in those 2 rooms, and then you can move about freely. If you are all set and you're satisfied with what you've heard today and you have no questions, we'd like to thank you for your time. If you could sign out in the chat before you go with one takeaway from today, but we hope you stay and chat with our presenters.